Good morning, YouTube. This is Los Angeles Prepper here with more video of me adjusting my tripod, the best kind of YouTube video. So I actually just had kind of a different idea for a video. Because of some material that I've been watching. So pop quiz. Are you familiar with what is going on in Venezuela right now? Give you a second to think about that. I am not an expert on what is going on in Venezuela. I am only very briefly aware of, not briefly, but partly aware, uh, and only have a very small amount of information as to what's going on down there. But long story short, and I would definitely recommend that you look into it, and that's kind of the point of this video. Long story short, their previous leader, Chavez, Hugo Chavez, I believe, um, he put all his eggs in one basket, and the basket that he chose was the oil basket. Now, when the price of oil was higher, and when we were living in an economy where people were not really thinking as much about saving fuel and just electric cars, like we are now, it's good to sell oil. What's wrong with selling oil if everyone's buying oil? Um, well, what's wrong with putting all your eggs in one basket? Of course, if you drop the basket, there go all your eggs. So the basket has dropped, but what's really interesting is that Venezuela wasn't the only one holding the basket. They couldn't. It's not Venezuela's fault the oil market had problems. That's not, and it's not even necessarily their fault that they invested a lot in oil, but the fact that they didn't really diversify, even if their economy was 50% oil, they would be in trouble, but not nearly as much as, the majority of their economy being based on oil. So, combined with some very anti poverty measures by the leader of the country, Chavez, at the time, because Maduro is the current leader, and I use the word leader for just so that I can kind of remain apolitical. I believe, I'm not sure if he considers himself. I think he considers himself a president, but at any rate, and what I think about the leader and what he calls himself and what he is, it's not really a point that's that's I think nearly as important as what's happening to the people, how the people are suffering down there. So they tried to put in some poverty measures. It ended up costing a lot of money. They also had some bad economic uh, decisions that were made, and that's certainly not something that was made by a single person, even if, the president or his financial advisor, whoever, all these decisions, result from the government acting as one. They had some inflation. I guess it peaked at 100% in 1996. So, 100% inflation means cost $1, and then it cost $100. So we've had that in America, but it took 100 years or something. Uh, I mean, not maybe not quite 100%, but say you used to be able to get a soda for a nickel or something. Now a soda's like maybe $2, $3 or something. So that's like 50% inflation. But when a soda goes from being a nickel to $5, that's it's 100% inflation. So Chavez died. Maduro came in, and he sort of kept things going, I guess, the way they were. They still have huge problems with inflation because the price of a barrel of oil has gone down, and they were still very into oil. That's been a big difficulty. They borrowed a lot of money for a lot of the programs that they put in place because it's like the thing with rich people, like, your expenses rise to meet your income. People that are very, very wealthy buy big houses and cars and boats and on and on and on. So Venezuela thought they were very wealthy. They borrowed a lot of money and they had good credit at the time, but then their credit and economy and country went down in the course of a few years. But that debt is, 5, 10, 15-year debt. It's not all like 2 or 3 year debt. So, um, the debt, they went into that debt under the assumption of a certain GDP. So when you don't have the GDP, you don't have the income, then all of a sudden this debt is just like ludicrous, and plus with their inflation, their dollar's worth even less. So, their purchasing power as a country, not just the individual citizen, but companies in the country, takes that much more to buy goods to run everything in their country. If you're paying for other stuff with Venezuelan dollars and you have 100% inflation, so instead of paying $1 for a pound of flour from some American, say, flour salesperson, you're paying $100 in Venezuelan dollars, to get that same pound of flour. So just and the people are suffering extremely. There's food shortages. A lot of people are very hungry down there. The whole country's average weight went down by like 15 pounds in the last year. I mean, the whole country is just um, really struggling. I mean, I'm sure not every person in the country is struggling, but a very large percentage of people are struggling in Venezuela. And I whether or not I think food shortages like that will come to this country, certainly if shit hits the fan, things will get very difficult. But I think it's just really important. There's so many things happening in the world, and you really can't try to be up on all of them or most of them. But things like what's happening in Venezuela, that are affecting hundreds of thousands of people in a very serious way, in a very long term way. And that's the real scary part about it, is that it's not just, oh, this week or this month, or we're predicting this year is going to be difficult. Venezuela, there might be light at the end of the tunnel, but it's a long way away right now for them. It would take some very significant action. And, I'm not an economist, so I can't really say, what the magic solution is for them. It's going to take sort of multiple approaches, because they have their lack of diversification, they have all their social programs, they have the inflation issues, even just the food shortage issues, so they're not insurmountable challenges. But the current leader, whether or not he's motivated to take drastic action to save the country remains to be seen. I certainly hope for the people of Venezuela that that Maduro is able to turn it around. And I really don't have much further comment on him than that. I'm not as Venezuelan. What I say on a YouTube video isn't really going to affect how he rules his country. So I think it's more important. And the reason I'm making this video is really just for Americans and anyone watching the video. I do have some foreign viewers who I'll give a shout out to at some point. The point is, kind of be aware of other things going on in the world. It's easy to look at history and say, oh, look at how this war happened, and look at how this famine or this, political unrest or civil, whatever thing you're dealing with, this coup, this, but there's so many present day examples of strife, of difficulties. Like I was talking about Catalonia the other day, this difficulty in Venezuela. There's a lot of areas in some third world and even some second world parts of the world, that second world countries, third world countries, where there's all sorts of turmoil. Very interesting times, like one of my subscribers commented. So if you are familiar with Venezuela, I'd love to hear what you think about it. If you're not familiar, go look it up and then come back and comment. Of course, you could look at it as a good reason to prep some food, but I think deeper than that, it's just kind of a really scary example that, even if the government knows that an area is having difficulty, even if the whole world knows an area is having difficulty, once things get to a certain point, there's no key to just unlock the solution. Once you get to kind of a certain level of economic difficulty, of the hyperinflation, the shortages, unwinding all that and putting everything back together, takes so much time. That's why, we talk about prepping not just for like 30 or 60 days, but, having a year's worth of food. because even though that's kind of an extreme situation of what might happen domestically here, um, those people are dealing with it. So it's not something that's out of the realm of possibility. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.